This Red Sox team is just flat out bizarre. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and unfortunately, the Boston Red Sox were not able to win their series against the Washington Nationals. They dropped 2 out of 3 games in this series. That officially puts them at 63-58 on the season. It also puts them 3.5 games back of third place in this division, and the most important statistic of them all, they are now 3.5 games out of a wild card spot. Now, like I said, this was just a bizarre series from a bizarre team that's been strange really the entire season. And before you go commenting in the comments right away, Corbin, this team isn't bizarre, they're just bad, blah, 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 right? Let me explain to you what I'm talking about. So, what we're going to do in today's video is break down this latest Red Sox series. We're going to talk about everything that went on in this series of note, and we're going to talk about why this Red Sox team may just be the strangest team in all of baseball. But before we get into that, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start by breaking down the offense, because let's be honest here, I think the strangest part of the 2023 Red Sox has been their offense, but one guy who has not been contributing to the weirdness this year is Triston Casas, because he continues to be the best hitter on the Boston Red Sox right now. He had a hit in every single game, including a 2-run single in the first game and an opposite field solo home run in the last game of this series. Triston Casas now has the highest OPS on the Boston Red Sox and has turned into, and I'm not kidding here, the best hitter in this current lineup. Triston Casas has become everything and more that we've wanted him to be at the Major League level, and it has been absolutely incredible to watch. Luis Urias also had his first home run in a Red Sox uniform, and it came at the strangest time. He had a grand slam in the finale of this series to cut the Red Sox deficit from 9-1 to 9-5. He hasn't done much offensively since joining the Boston Red Sox, so it makes complete sense with the way this Red Sox season has gone that his first home run is a grand slam in the strangest moment of one of the strangest seasons I've watched in a long time. Pablo Reyes continues to be a spark plug for this offense. He, like Triston Casas, also had a hit in all 3 games that included a double and at the time an electric 2-run home run to tie the game in the 8th inning for the Red Sox. If someone told me at the beginning of the season that the spark plug of the Red Sox, that the guy who's been really kind of all over the place over the last couple of weeks, contributing in every possible way, was a player the Red Sox traded for cash considerations from the A's and a guy who couldn't even crack the Oakland A's roster, I would tell you that the Red Sox are 30 games under 500, but here we are, right? Again, bizarre. Rafael Devers only had a single hit in this series, but it was a big one. It was a monster 2-run home run, but like I said, outside of that, he went hitless. Rafi has kind of been the face of just sort of the weirdness this season has been, right? It feels like Rafael Devers gets wildly hot and he does all this crazy stuff, and then he comes back down to earth a little bit and he's fine for a couple of weeks, and then he goes into a slump and he just sort of repeats that process over and over again, and somehow, some way, he still managed to be a very productive hitter at the plate with a 122 OPS plus. Again, it's just been a weird year. Doogie hit a leadoff home run in this series, his second leadoff home run of the year. He also had a hit in every single game. His last hit was as a pinch hitter in the 3rd game of this series. He's had a season with ups and downs similar to Rafael Devers. The difference is when Rafi is slumping, he's still hitting tanks and he's still being productive RBI wise, although he's only had 5 RBIs since the month of August began. When Doogie goes slumping, it's like nothing's going right for him. That's the difference between him and Rafael Devers, in my opinion. And I think overall what this series did, at least offensively, was highlight exactly what the Red Sox offense has looked basically the entire season, right? Game 1, you kind of touch up the Nationals' most promising pitcher, the guy who's been performing the best so far this season. Then in Game 2, you go absolutely lifeless aside from Pablo Reyes against a guy who'd been struggling all this year but had some promise. And then in the 3rd game, you continue to be lifeless for 6 out of the 9 innings, but once you hit the 7th inning, you absolutely come to life and you bombard the Nationals pitching, right? It's what it's been like this entire season. Ups and downs and ebbs and flows, and it feels like the Red Sox simply can't find any common ground. In this series, you had guys who were hitting well, like the guys we highlighted, right? And then you had guys who quite literally could not buy a hit, right? Adam Duvall, Trevor Story, who was making contact, but it was just ending up in gloves. Rafael Devers had 1 home run and then no other hits. Masataka Yoshida had a 2-hit game in the last game, but he had been struggling up until that point, right? It feels like the offense as a whole simply can't find that middle ground, and it's somehow evened out to an above average offense. But for Red Sox fans, it's been wildly frustrating because every single couple of weeks you're like, oh man, here's that offense that we know and love. Here's that offense that has propelled us to where we are so far this season, and then it just disappears again for a couple of weeks. It feels like they're just up, they're down, they're putting us through a cyclone, right? My head is quite literally spinning at this point, and I have absolutely no idea what's going to come next for this Red Sox offense. Now, the kind of silver lining of this series in terms of the offense was that they finished it really, really strong, right? They had multiple hits in the last couple of innings, and they looked like they were coming back to life a little bit. Hopefully, that's something momentum-wise they can carry over the next couple of series, because it's about to get a whole lot more difficult. As for the pitching in this series, Nick Pivetta got the ball game 1, and talk about a bizarre season. Nick Pivetta did not do very well in this series. He only managed to go 4 1/3 innings, allowing 4 earned runs on 5 hits while walking 3 and still being able to strike out 7. His starter ERA this year is now up to a 5.88, but his relieving ERA is still at a 2.40 and about the same amount of innings. I don't understand what's going on with Nick Pivetta, right? I understand it's a mental thing. I understand it has something to do with his mentality coming out of the bullpen as opposed to taking the mound as a starter, but the difference it makes having Nick Pivetta come in the 2nd inning and go 6 innings as opposed to him coming in the 1st inning and try and go 6 innings is like night and day. Again, it's kind of bizarro world Red Sox right now. In game 2, you got James Paxton, who's actually really solid. He ended up going 6 innings, allowing 2 earned runs on 5 hits while striking out 3. He's been pretty solid all year, right? It's kind of hard to be like, oh, James Paxton's lumped into this bizarro world Red Sox when he's been pretty consistent throughout the entirety of the 2023 season, at least when he's been healthy. So I'm going to leave him out of this sort of strange slander in today's video. The finale got Chris Sale, and Chris Sale did struggle in this series. He managed to go 4 1/3 innings, allowing 2 earned runs on 2 hits. He walked 3 batters and he struck out 3 batters as well. And I think this start was a bit of a combination of fatigue from being out so long, right? His velocity was much lower than it was against the Detroit Tigers. And I think it was also a combination of the umpire having a really, really tough strike zone, one that probably should have led to a lot less walks for Chris Sale, and Chris Sale's command being a bit off as well. So it was just sort of the perfect storm of crap for Chris Sale in this start. But again, when we're talking about the season as a whole, there were times where Chris Sale looked like he was a 5 starter. There are times where Chris Sale looks like he's the ace of the Boston Red Sox. Now, I think overall, there's been more times where Chris Sale's looked like an ace than Chris Sale's looked like a 5th starter, but still, right? It's been a weird season for Chris Sale a little bit. Now, as for the bullpen, they were absolutely all over the place. Josh Witkowski had 1 good inning and then 1 terrible inning. Whitlock looked really off in his 1 outing where it led to 4 earned runs in 1 inning. I'm wondering if Garrett Whitlock is still ramping up a bit, right? He only got 1 appearance back in rehab before he was sent back to the major leagues. He was dealing with arm fatigue before he went onto the IL. While he was on the IL, right? I'm wondering if that's something he's still trying to get over as he moves into more of a bullpen role. Chris Murphy had a rare rough outing, right, where he allowed 3 runs. Again, all of these guys have been fairly solid for you, especially out of the bullpen over the last couple of years or this year in particular, and it just seems like they dropped the ball this outing. But on top of that, you had guys who did pretty well in this series out of the bullpen. Schreiber, Martin, Kenley, like I mentioned, Wink had a good outing at one point. Bernardino had a decent outing. It's just there's no common ground with this Red Sox team. They're either really bad or they're really good. And it's weird because it's not just like the sort of back end of the roster type guys who have struggled at points this year. There have been times where this pitching staff has looked like an elite pitching staff in Major League Baseball, right? And the entirety of this staff. It's not just one sort of area. It's not the last 3 innings where they look elite in. It's like the entire roster looks really, really good for weeks, and then they flip it over and they lay a brick the next week. It's the same thing that happening with the offense right now as well. Now, there's one thing that has remained constant in the Red Sox game over the 2023 season, and it was on full display in this series, and that is bad defense, right? Defensive blunders. Some of them are called errors, some of them are called hits, but at the end of the day, they are plays that should be made that aren't getting made. They have the worst defense in baseball, and there's a statistic outs above average where the Red Sox could quite possibly become the worst outs above average team in history since that stat started getting recorded this year, and it's just icing on top of the cake at this point in terms of the strange season for the Red Sox. Rafael Devers seems to have taken a step back defensively. He's had a lot of moments lately, but I think overall as a team, right, what you're seeing are guys having just these moments where they should be making plays and they just simply aren't. There's a million different scenarios where this play should have been made and it just wasn't. So the one constant for this team this year has been their bad defense. In terms of the series as a whole, it's wildly disappointing, right? The Red Sox are about to have one of the toughest schedules in Major League Baseball. I think it actually ends up being the second hardest schedule to finish the year in Major League Baseball, and this was sort of the time where you had the opportunity to lay the groundwork, the foundation to build upon and really compete against these really difficult teams. You end up going 6-4 against the Royals, the Tigers, and the Nationals. You needed to do a bit better than that, and you just simply didn't, right? It was disappointing. Now you go into New York against a struggling New York team, and honestly, I don't know what to expect. Again, the whole theme of this video is that the Red Sox are the strangest team in baseball, and it's just a bizarre thing that's happening with this Red Sox team where they play themselves into these great opportunities to make legitimate moves, whether that's in the standings or towards the wild card or just simply getting themselves back on track. They can get themselves to that point, but once they get to that point, it feels like they just lay down and die, and then all of a sudden it's back to square one where they go back and they build themselves up, they get to that point, and they do the exact same again. It's been up, down all season long, and what the Red Sox need to do over the last month is to get somewhere in the middle. I just want to see consistency for the last couple of months of this season, right? Because it's something we have not gotten this entire year, whether it's against good teams, whether it's against bad teams, right? It feels like the inconsistency for the most part has come against really bad teams like the Washington Nationals, but it's been happening this entire season. Now, to be completely honest with you, I'm not really super upset about this series because I think it was kind of expected, right? Based on what they've done this entire year, it felt right that the 2023 Red Sox dropped this series to the Washington Nationals. Now, it doesn't take them out of the playoff race. It doesn't take them out of trying to get above the Toronto Blue Jays. It just makes everything a whole lot more difficult, which is exactly what the 2023 Red Sox have done all year. Now, I've seen a lot of people blaming a lot of different people in this Red Sox team, individuals on the Red Sox team, and to be honest with you, I don't think you can blame anyone else than the players on this field because we've seen what this team completely put together looks like and how good they can be. So to me, it's like, okay, well, if they've been really good in the past, right, it's probably not Alex Cora who was able to manage through only having 3 starters, technically 2.5 starters in his rotation for a month and have the best record in baseball. It could be a little bit on Heimblum, not getting reinforcements, not paying close enough attention to the rotation at the beginning of the season, but at the same time too, again, this team has played up to what it's supposed to be playing up to before this season, and we've seen it be one of the best teams in baseball. So in my opinion, at the end of the day, the reason the Red Sox lost this series was not because of Alex Cora. It was not because of Heimblum. It was because of what the players were able to do on the field. So yeah, I'm not really upset. I'm just sort of disappointed that this was the time they decided to lay that egg. The big question for me right now is whether or not they can have another upswing this season, and if that upswing can come before this downswing does too much damage, right? I know at some point they are going to get hot again. The question is, are they going to get hot now and start making themselves interesting, or are they going to keep this downswing going for the next week or so and just sort of completely ruin everything that's happened throughout the 2023 campaign? Honestly, I don't know what to expect, but I'm along for the ride. Anyways, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of this latest Red Sox series. Let me know what you think about the Red Sox being one of the strangest teams in baseball. Let me know all your thoughts about the 2023 Red Sox and their bizarro world season in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.